Good afternoon. I hereby call this October the 14th meeting of the Public Safety Committee to order. As always, we'd like to take a little moment before our meetings get started and thank everyone who helps to move the public safety needle forward. I give honor to the city manager, Mr. Garrity, our city attorney, Attorney Carmen, our public safety attorney, Attorney Sykes. We have three different public safety departments. Representing emergency management, we have Mr. August Vernon here, the brave men and women there. Representing our police department, we have Chief Thompson here today, and representing the brave men and women of the police department, and we have several other officers and members of the police department. Representing our fire department, Chief Mayo could not make it today, but we have an excellent replacement, in my opinion, Mr. Frank Stowe. Chief Stowe, thank you for being here as well, representing the brave men and women of the fire department. We have a consent agenda and a general agenda. Items on the general agenda are typically approved with one unanimous vote unless a member of this committee asks it to be pulled for consideration. We have three items on the general agenda. There is a consideration of a resolution authorizing the acceptance of a 2019 Local Enforcement Crime Gun Intelligence Center Integration Initiative grant. That was a mouthful. And then there is another consideration of a resolution authorizing acquisition of a property in the Form 52 Business Park. And then there is information regarding online filing of citizen police complaints and accommodations. Members of the committee, are there any items on the general agenda, the consent agenda, that should be pulled for consideration? If there are none, we'd entertain a motion.
Motion to approve.
Consent agenda has been motioned. Is there a second?
Second.
Properly seconded. All in favor, please vote yes. Opposers, vote no. Consent agenda is approved unanimously. Thank you. Item G1, please. Speaking of Chief Thompson, giving us information on this action request is our Chief of Police. Chief Thompson, you have the floor, ma'am.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Chairman Taylor, Mayor Pro Tem Burke, members of the committee. This item is in response to the police department looking at and recognizing the gun violence that we had, much like cities across the country here in Winston-Salem. As part of our gun violence reduction initiative, we were seeking opportunities to increase our capacity to be able to deal with the gun violence we were having, particularly back during the spring of this year. As a result, we sought a grant through the U.S. Department of Justice, and we were fortunate enough to receive it. The grant is in the amount of $699,608. We are extremely fortunate to be able to get that grant. And again, the grant is from the Department of Justice under the 2019 Local Law Enforcement Crime Gun Intelligence Center. Basically, this grant will enable us as a department to have what we call a gun detection system. Most people know it as ShotSpotter, which is an actual name of a gun detection system. What we will do is we will use this system, relying on our data, to determine where we have the highest level of gun violence as reported to us, and that's how we will use this tool to deploy and help us to attack the gun violence in the city. So this item is being brought before this council to ask for your authorization for us to receive this grant.
Any questions from the chief? Councilmember Larson.
Okay. No, that's okay. You can go ahead and I'm going to say.
Okay, thank you. This is very exciting, and congratulations to whoever initiated this. I'm very interested in sort of the technologies involved in all of this. So I assume there's small sensors that are being located throughout the city that will pick up the sounds of a gunshot and relay them somehow or another to you.
So I'm still learning about it, but you are spot on based on what I know at this point. There is a range, I believe, of about 3 miles that this particular system will allow us to be able to track. We'll use this in conjunction with our VFIT, our Violent Firearms Intelligence team that we stood up earlier this year in conjunction with our NIBIN system. So this just becomes a part of our overall system and initiative on attacking gun violence. But the system is designed so that it detects in real time where gunshots are actually occurring. It allows us to then be able to deploy officers out, whether that crime or that gunshots are actually reported to us or not. We can respond out, and then we can collect as soon as possible, and possibly actually be able to make some arrests, but definitely be able to collect evidence as a result. Then use our VFIT team to input that information into our NIBIN system, and hopefully be able to get guns and most importantly, the shooters off our streets.
Response time would be increased, obviously.
Yes, sir.
The idea. Now, but are there multiple sensors? Is this the sort of thing that has a net that's put out in various locations?
There are several sensors. Again, it goes into a range, and we kind of have to determine that based on the data that we receive.
Database. And there's some discussion about expanding that over time. Is that?
As you can tell, the system is extremely expensive.
Well, we're a 5-year program, right?
So it's a 3-year. The grant is for 3 years, and I think it's important to mention too that we were fortunate in terms of there's no sustainability requirement with this grant on the city to maintain it after the 3 year. The 3 years are up, nor is there any type of matching responsibility on the city.
Just one last. So this is technology equipment. This is mostly the purchase of equipment. Is that what this is involved? It's not staff time or anything like that, is it?
It is that,
It's
and
for staff time.
also there's a bit of training that's required for the members that will be part of the team.
Thank you, Jim.
Thank you, Ms. Larson. Mayor Pro Tem Burke.
Yes, I was just going to say thanks to the chief for always being out there applying for these grants.
Yes, ma'am.
Because every grant we get helps us to improve ourselves. And I know and I pray that this will be a good project.
Thank you.
Because we're having so many people shooting, and we can't get control over where they are. And this will probably, hopefully, help us move forward. Thank you.
Thank you.
Councilmember McIntosh.
Just curious, was Leslie Mazingo involved in sort of finding out that this grant was available, or is this something that we sussed out ourselves?
We are always using Leslie as often as we possibly can. I will tell you that this and one other grant was brought to my attention by our lieutenant, one of our lieutenants that's assigned to my office. That's Lieutenant Leone.
Excellent. And you all are confident that the system is sophisticated enough to distinguish between false positives, from firecrackers and guns? I'm assuming that we don't.
Based on what I've read about it, it is. The proof will be in the pudding when we give it a shot.
So the system, as I understand it, is sort of a mesh of microphones, and you triangulate between them to find a location. So based on the distance from any one of them,
Yes, sir.
pull it up. Okay. All right, that's all I got.
Mayor Pro Tem Burke.
I failed to say, I know you'll be giving us a report.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, Chief, I think we'd agree if we could anticipate where gun violence would occur, we would certainly be leading the country. And I think this is one way that we can lead the country, by figuring out where gun violence did occur and going out and stopping those perpetrators and working to keep the people in our community safe. So this is a great tool in our tool belt. I believe this is an action item. We've heard from the chief. We've asked our questions. Is there anyone else who wishes to be heard before we move forward? I didn't entertain a motion on this item, please. It's in motion and properly seconded. All in favor, please vote yes. Opposed is likewise able to vote no. That is unanimous. Thank you, Chief. Item G2, please.
Item G2, resolution authorizing acquisition of property in the Form 52 Business Park for a new police driving and training facility, $350,000 from zero bonds.
Giving us a little bit of information on this project is Mr. Kurt Bjorling. Thank you for being here. You have the floor, sir.
Thank you very much, Mayor Pro Tem Burke, Chairman Taylor, council members. I'm going to give you a little overview of the real estate side of this, and then there are certainly police staff here that can go into more detail and give you more explanation.
Yes, sir.
But for several years, we have been conducting a search for land which could serve as a site for a new police driving facility. A property has been located that will provide the police department with an area for meeting the specifications of the North Carolina Criminal Justice Education and Training Standards Commission. This site is located in the Forum 52 Business Park off Highway 52. And the feasibility studies that have completed will show that this site would meet all of the city's needs at a very affordable price. It's composed of about 17.32 acres. It's currently owned by Winston-Salem Business, Inc., and the purchase price would be $350,000 or $20,200 an acre. This price is much less than other property which the city has considered over the past several years, and we have included in Exhibit B some of the properties that have been considered over the years and have been eliminated for one reason or another, primarily due to cost. The North Carolina Department of Transportation acquired a portion of this lot, about a 2-acre part, just within the last few months, and they had an appraisal done of the property by a North Carolina General Certified Appraiser, and they paid $50,000 an acre for a couple acres that they acquired. That was the appraised value by NCDOT. And the NCDOT appraiser had comps that was used in the appraisal of $46,000, $50,000, and almost $52,000 an acre. And those are included in your Exhibit A to show you some of the comparable sales that were included. So at this time, the recommendation is being made to acquire this property for a sales price of $350,000. And as I said, police staff are certainly available. I'll be glad to answer any real estate questions with you, and they are here too.
Real estate questions for Mr. Bjorley. Mr. McIntosh.
Not so much a question, but just the kudos for a job well done. Getting the land, 30 grand less than the state really has to make you feel good. And I know we've been looking for this for a long time. So I'm very happy with this. The location, you always worry about creating noise that's going to offend neighbors, but this is in an industrial area.
Correct.
That fronts onto the highway, so I think it's ideal. Thank you.
Councilwoman, okay, I'll go to Mr. Larson, then I didn't see your hand up.
No, you didn't see my
Mr. Larson, then Councilmember Scipio.
Is this in the city limits, or is this in?
No, it's not in it's not in City of Winston.
It's not currently part of the city limits. It's
No, it's
within
not.
Rural Hall. Is within
Rural
the
Hall.
jurisdiction of Rural Hall?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So we're going to be paying taxes in Rural Hall?
I'm not sure of the tax status.
No. Is that a no?
No, we don't pay taxes. We're exempt
we don't
even
pay,
in other
we don't
jurisdictions.
Pay, we don't pay other cities. We don't pay taxes. Okay. There's a creek running through this property. There's an open stream, right, running through this property?
There is a general elevation change going from north to south, but our engineering department has reviewed the situation. They've done all their due diligence, and they feel like it would be a very good site.
So we've looked at runoff issues into the stream and water control, watershed issues as part of that engineering problem. And do we know how much grading work we'll have to do on this site with the topo that it's located? Do we have an estimated cost of installing this unit at this location? I mean, it's a great price for the land. I got that. What I'm going toward is, we got a good piece of land apparently outside of the city limits, which would rather be in the city limits. But I'm trying to understand. Do we have any idea what it's going to cost to actually build this track in this location?
Chairman Taylor, Mayor Pro Tem Burke, members of the committee, good evening.
Good evening.
We don't have the specific dollar amounts figured out, but with the topography, we can't use the entire site, and that's been one of the challenges with all the properties that we've investigated over the years, is that most of these larger tracts had significant topographical challenges. So in this case, the largest elevation change in the usable portion of the site is 30 feet maximum. So there will be some grading and filling, but we can build we were looking for a 600 by 600 minimum paved surface to provide for the police department. And Corporal Day is here and has a presentation to go over on all the benefits of the project. But this is actually a 2-parcel purchase. The parcel on the front end, which will allow access, is level and allows for the parking of staff and vehicles, and to have the training facility and the restrooms, et cetera, which really opens up the availability of the mostly level portion of the lot.
Police department's happy with this location? I mean, it is up on 52. And what road do you actually access to get into the site?
Councilmember Larson, you get off on Bethania Rural Hall Road, and then you take a right on
Belt Road, is that the route in?
I'm sorry?
Is Belt Road? What is the street that actually feeds into this site? Are we gonna have to build a road to get into it?
No, sir. It's paved up until we would add our access road onto the site.
And I think there was a question on the floor from Mr. Larson. Is the police officer, the police department happy with this site? And Chief walked up to the podium to be recognized to answer that question. Chief, you're recognized.
Thank you. Councilmember Larson, the police department is happy to have a driver's training site for a department our size. I've been here for almost 26 years, and I'm extremely excited to have a site that we can actually do our training on without having to move around the way we've had to do. But what I'll do is I will, if it's the council is okay, the committee is okay, I will turn the floor over to Corporal Thomas Day, who is the expert in the driver's training field as it pertains to training of law enforcement.
I'm always happy to hear a report, but does anyone wish to hear from Corporal? I feel like I've got all the information I need to make a decision. Is there a specific question that you need answered, Mr. Larson?
I'm not against the traffic. I'm not against the driving.
Okay.
I'm just trying to understand exactly how it's going to be laying on the land, what the costs are going to be, why this site is so viable, and is it a matter that we just can't find another site? Is that where we are in this? We've looked for a long time.
So let's take it step by step. Corporal Day, will you produce any information in this presentation that answers any question that Mr. Larson just asked about, cost, the topography and things of that nature? Yours is just sort of the pros and cons of the facility, correct?
Yes, mainly.
If you just, since we summoned you, I apologize.
Okay.
I have to bring you up.
Sorry. Thank you, Chairman Taylor, Mayor Pro Tem, members of this committee. Now, mostly what I would speak to is the need that we currently have for training our officers, how much we would use it, some of the opportunities it would open up for us, and the general impact that it would have in the area, which would be almost none in that site that it was. I personally don't have any information on how much it would cost to build or grade or anything of that nature.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Mr. DeCane is recognized. Assistant City Manager.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. I'm going to pull up Corporal Day's presentation. I'm going to skip all of his hard work, and I'm going to go right to the last slide.
Which we appreciate, sir.
Well, let me see here. Slideshow. So I'm going to cruise through it so you can see what a great job he did. Okay. This slide shows the preliminary engineering that staff has performed. It has the topographical lines and our conceptual design for where the site would sit. Councilmember Larson, if you would like, before Monday's meeting, we can bring the construction estimate. I just don't have it with me this evening. We've done some estimates on the cut and fill, the cost of fencing, the asphalt expenses, as well as the lot and the building. There are water and sewer to the site currently, so there's no extensions required for that. The only entrance road that needs to be built is from the existing roadway down to prior to where you see the current siting of the building. So it would be a small 2-lane access road with a paved parking lot. We have the bond funds for this are around $3 million, and we're extremely confident that we can build the entire facility within that budget.
Mr. Larson is recognized.
You're just in that upper northeast corner. Is that what we're looking at? All the yellow is really undeveloped.
Yes, sir. The yellow portion will be the paved driving surface, and I'm going to step from the mic for a second. These facilities will move on this lot. This lot and this piece are both included in the sale. So all of this will be moved out. That will allow us to probably eliminate some filling here, create a more rectangular.
Okay, so you don't have an actual sketch yet of the placement of this track or this pad on this site yet?
No, sir, but we have adequate spacing for the police department to provide their input on how they'd like it striped.
So, Mr. Larson, I think your questions have been answered about the topographical stuff. I know you have a question about the actual cost of construction. Staff has indicated they can get that to you before Monday.
I think we have a budget that will allow construction.
Okay.
My understanding is the bond should cover this.
Yes, sir.
I'm just drilling you a little bit.
It's okay.
We know.
We're going to manage it, though.
All right.
Mayor Pro Tem Burke.
But also, following up with Mr. Larson, you said that there were other places it was more than 50,000 an acre.
Yes, Mayor Pro Tem, that's correct.
Now, in a business way, you would have brought to us that one of those other places, and you could have compared if to do this, is it cheaper in the long run to do the one that you pay more for an acre? Would that be the cheaper? Once you do what Mr. Larson was talking about, building out one, showing us that you got to go in and make a lot of improvements with the property.
Yes, ma'am. And what we discovered, I can answer that right now for you, was that the price of the land was at $50,000 an acre, and we basically had the same expenses as far as grading the land to make these very improvements. So there wasn't any real savings in the actual leveling of the land to build the facility. The real savings were in the purchase of the property at $20,000 an acre versus $50,000 an acre.
Well, then I guess you would sort of emphasize a little bit more of the cheaper one compared to the one that costs more.
Yes, ma'am.
Where?
Mr. Larson.
So the Peters Creek Parkway, I know where the side road was. Where 3425 Peters Creek Parkway, where is that? That's obviously South Fork.
It is. That was the, I want to say it was
Across from Lowe's.
It is. And I, for the life of me, I can't remember the name of that development. That one had significant topographical.
Down that Creek Valley?
Yes, sir. So we had to buy, is that the 30-plus acre property? We could only make use of approximately half of it. So we would have to buy 30 acres to be able to use 17.
Well, no, the Peters Creek is 18 acres and it's 54,000 per acre is the point.
Right.
If it was level and buildable, that would have been interesting. Are we even an award? Is this location in award?
No, sir. It is not in the city limits.
So it's outside, it's not even in North Ward.
Correct.
Councilwoman Scipio.
Just a quick question. Does the county have a driving training facility?
No, ma'am. They do not.
So it's quite feasible that this particular facility would be able to be rented out to other municipalities. Is that right? To make it a little
I'll defer
They may
to
not be
Corporal
so thrilled
Daniel
about
now.
it, but it's not.
Yeah. How much you raise
That's correct, Council Member. The closest two sites that would meet the needs of basic law enforcement training or in-service training, one of them is at Guilford Tech in Jamestown, and one is at Surrey Community College. So those would be a pretty significant drive. Right now, our BLET recruits are going to the Guilford Tech site to complete their basic law enforcement training. And this would allow us to have a closer facility, and just in speaking with other law enforcement officers in the area, there's very limited places for anyone to drive. Usually they're set up in small shopping center parking lots and stuff like that, kind of on the fly. Having a dedicated facility would just allow everyone, not only us, but other law enforcement officers in the community, better opportunities.
follow-up question.
Okay.
And as we design this facility, can we think a little bit out of the box that we can make ours really special? Maybe the topography may lead to some hills, some weird curves, or something that would be a unique to our training facility that others may be able to come and get some training on. That's
a wonderful idea.
as we thought.
That's a great thought. So I think we're almost to the point where we're going to call the question.
Yes.
We'll move to Mayor Pro Tem Burke.
I was going to say, Councilwoman Scipio, we do talk about combining city and county. Mm-hmm. We did that with our shooting range up there off of Liberty. And this is what, Corporal, I believe that she was asking you. You mentioned Guilford, but could others right around here, could they share the use of it?
Yes, certainly. I mean, there would be large areas we could work other folks in. Forsyth County, just any of the other surrounding places. Just like I said, as I've spoken with other law enforcement officers, everyone's looking for a good site. And to speak to Councilmember Scipio's point there a minute ago, the state has certain requirements on grade and things like that. As long as we met those for the basic law enforcement training courses that we have, there would be opportunities in the future for things like an example, a skid track, where you can actually introduce a skid into the car safely and controlled. Most people, they've never been in a fishtail with their car until they're in bad weather conditions, and then they react on instinct. So something like that would add to the value of that course, and more officers would want to come, something that we could use to help other law enforcement members.
One last question.
Well, let's do this. Let's go. We'll move around to be recognized for the last time. We'll go with Councilmember McIntosh, then Councilmember Larson.
The last point you brought up, I think, might be a good training opportunity for council members.
Certainly. You're more than
going
welcome
first.
to.
He's
More than welcome to.
And the mayor.
Councilman Larson.
This is 35 acres, a lot of land. How much of it's actually buildable will be interesting. Does this have the potential for the fire training center as well, this land?
Excellent question, Councilmember Larson. No, sir, it does not.
It's not.
The standards we'd have to build this and the size, this site is not adequate for that. They need a very thick concrete pad so that it doesn't get torn up the first few times the fire trucks are out there.
I was
So
thinking more about training. I was thinking more about fire tower training and things like that.
Again, because of the nature of what this use will be, having the tower where the police vehicles will be maneuvering is not compatible. So we're currently searching for another site for a fire training facility to include a pad for their drivers as well.
Peters Creek Parkway would be really nice.
Shameless plug.
Yeah.
I love it.
Noted.
So look, members of the committee and council, we have a few options here. We could vote today in lieu of information coming to us on Monday regarding the construction. We can send this forward without a recommendation, or we could hold in committee for further information. What is the pleasure of the committee? If there's a motion, I'd entertain it this time.
Motion to approve.
We have a motion to approve by Councilmember McIntosh, seconded by Councilman Larson. All in favor? Oh, before we did discussion.
I'm just going to abstain. I'm not going to.
Okay.
Maybe some more discussion.
Yes, ma'am. Okay. Anything else that we need to discuss before we move forward? All in favor, please vote yes. Opposers likewise. I'll get it together in a second. So, okay, the motion carries with 3 in favor, 1 abstention, and Councilmember Burke is abstaining. This will move forward to Monday's meeting. Is there anything else we need to discuss on item G2? Let's move forward, please. Item G3.
Item G3, information regarding online filing of citizens' police complaints and commendations.
Council members, we've discussed this in committee at least 2 times, and this will be our 3rd time. Attorney Andrews has been so gracious as to help to shepherd this through the city. It makes sense to us all. We asked him for some information on the last go-around, and he's coming to provide that with us. So, Mr. Andrews, if you give us a brief overview, and you have the floor, sir.
Thank you, Chairman Taylor, Mayor Pro Tem Burke, other members of the committee. I wanted to just come briefly and talk to you about where we are and where we're headed with the online complaint and commendation process. So what has been created is forms have been created that are, we believe, very useful to citizens to be able to file commendations of officers that they experience in the field. They can go online, log on. There's a URL, a web link that is set up for them to access, to file that information, and they'll be able to file a electronic commendation for officers and employees. And then there will also be a vehicle, same type of vehicle, that they can log onto a URL to file a citizen informal police complaint. What I wanted to kind of articulate and differentiate from before, the complaint that will be filed online, if one is filed by citizens, will be labeled an informal complaint to fit the nomenclature necessary for handling of complaints. The term informal does not mean insignificant. The information will be fully gathered. It will be very accommodating to citizens. All kinds of data can be received, and data can be added to it of various formats, video, audio, what have you, and added to the complaint. It will be handled and touched by those who need to do so. The citizen will be contacted, and the complaint will be handled by primarily by the chain of command. If a citizen wishes to go further and file what's called formal complaint, that process will be facilitated as well, and they'll use forms. Doing it this way helps fit with the accreditation standards of the police department. Of course, they're accredited by the Commission on Accreditation of Law Enforcement Agencies, CALEA. And so this will fit with that, and the complaint will be formally investigated. And it can lead to, if need be, or if the citizen requests it, from the results that come, if they are dissatisfied with the results of their formal complaint, of course it tracks into the Citizens Police Review Board process if need be. But we believe having these online, we'll call it a portal, where you can choose to file a commendation or complaint will be useful to the citizens. They can do so from their home or from anywhere mobily or however. And we will be able to, the links are live, but we will set up what I will refer to as a portal and plan to go live with that at months, and certainly by November that'll be set up and available, and it's searchable. You can go to the city's website, and it's called, I think, Boolean, but you can type in your search and you can be led. It'll be housed on the police website, and you can go there and file these.
Attorney Andrews, I just think that as much as we can allow citizens to have a voice in this city, we should do it. This is certainly, as I say, another tool in our tool belt. It is my prediction that there will be way more accommodations than you'll have complaints, but this gives people an opportunity to simply just be heard. I think at the end of the day, I know what it's like to have been voiceless, and I don't ever want to go back there. And I think there are people who don't have a voice. This gives them an opportunity informally, and they can move forward to a formal process. With Mayor Pro Tem Burke.
I feel, and that's a good comment you made, I feel that in years, and more even in recent years, that we've had a police department that has reached out to citizens. And they have had different types of events where citizens have come to them and have spoken their concerns. The other day I was looking, and citizens, youth, they were speaking human relations, and they were talking about wanting to feel comfortable and free in the place where they live. Well, I feel that I don't have anything against what you're introducing. I just have to think about it some more.
I understand.
I hope, Mr. City Manager, if this is to pass, that it will not be where people steadily complain and use this as a place to complain. Because if, as a police, a citizen complains about me on a regular basis, it will do something to my reputation as a police. I believe in freedom of speech. 36 years I served as chairman of this Public Safety Committee. When I became chairman, a woman, and being black, do you know what that was with white police not wanting to accept? But we pushed and pushed until we got our police department to understand that we were going to have a relationship that was positive with citizens, north, east, south, and west. We have a police department that people from around the country come to this police department. They use us as an example. We were probably one of the first cities to have a Citizens Police Review Board. And we have not been perfect. But I just want you to know, in using this, that we need to be sure and awfully sure, because if I were a police and maybe my supervisor didn't care too much about me, they could take these complaints and use them. Also, we have, with this police department, police who are having problems with their emotions. You know, they're human beings just like we are. And the things that upset them, trying to keep their homes together and their family, their children, obligations that they have, some of them need to have counseling, but some of them refuse to take counseling because they don't want it to be on their record and to be misused. So I'm just saying, Mr. City Manager, to the attorney, we need to be very, very careful in using a tool like this.
Agreed. Councilman McIntosh.
What's the go-forward strategy on this? This is for information. How and when does this get implemented? Is it out there now? Is it already functioning?
So what will happen, I'll want to reiterate, we are creating what I'm going to refer to as an online portal that would include a little bit of visual and an explanation. The URL links are live now, but they will reside on this landing page, if you will.
Right.
And we will have that set up by the end of the month, at the latest at the beginning of next month. We're working with a new web page that's come into existence, and we want to integrate it. So we plan to host it at the police department's, I'll call it a sub-page. It's not the right technical term, but the police department's page. But if you were to go to the city's homepage and type in police commendation or police complaint, you would be referred to the page where it'll be, and the links will reside, and you just click them on your cell phone, your mobile device, or your desktop, and you'll be led into the forms that have been uploaded that you see.
So it sounds like, I mean, the user interface still needs a little bit of work, but the meat of the program is set.
Yes.
Right? And so, I mean, do we need to vote on it, or is it
No,
just
it's an information item.
Just an information item.
Yeah, so it'll go live without, with or without, yeah, great, okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Councilman Larson.
So I just basically have a couple questions. One is, in looking at the form for the accommodation, it says, for example, which I think is great, actually, having accommodation, but it uses the word citizen.
Yes,
And if you are an illegal citizen, or if you're in the country illegally and you see that word citizen, and you're wondering, how am I going to punch that one? And so if we want to have truth and transparency, maybe we need to say Winston-Salem citizen or something like that.
Or resident is a,
Or resident, perhaps, or some qualifiers compared to U.S. citizen is I guess, the question mark here. Just a little clarity on that. Second thing that sort of drew my attention is we have two levels here. We have the informal, and then we have a formal complaint. The informal is all digital. You just go online, you file it in, send it in, whatever. The formal, you have to actually go pick up the form and fill it out on site or whatever with the aid of the police department, whoever. And I'm wondering if that differentiation is acting as a filtering device of some sort of issue to somehow filter out more severe ones or not, or whether we even need two levels, or whether we need to just have a process of somebody airing a complaint, and then we can decide how deep it goes within our own police department. But I'm wondering if the two levels that we're suggesting, somehow either everything has to be digital or not, on that. And I'm just asking a question here, and I'm not trying to make it more complicated, but it seems to me that if there's a problem and somebody wants to express it to the city or to the police department, they need a fairly expeditious way to do that. Whatever, walk in, fill out a form, go online, fill out a form, whatever. And then it really becomes incumbent on us to see how severe that issue is, whether it's more complex or not. And then, if the complainant is not satisfied then with that initial investigation, whatever it is, then it can go to the next levels. But to have two forms initially to start those discussions, I'm wondering if that's necessary. That's just a matter of discussion, I think, for the committee and for the police department, how they administer it. I do agree. I do understand what Councilmember Burke's saying is we don't want to be inundated with every time somebody gets stopped by a policeman, their adrenaline goes up, they get angry, and you get whatever. And it's very likely that we could get a lot of just ripple effect of people that are angry at the moment go get on their computer and fire off a complaint of some sort. So I think we may want to roll this out carefully and think about and I assume the police have given a lot of thought as to what this means as far as follow up the backside of all of this, and what it means for their responsibilities to answer these complaints. The compliments are great. We'll love those, and we probably will get a lot of those. But I'm just trying to understand a little bit about the process here on informal, formal, and what that means as far as access into our complaint system.
If I might.
Please do.
Yes, Councilman Larson. So there is not a filter. There is not any effort to reduce access. It's actually meant to ease access. Anyone can file an informal complaint, and it turns out, as I have been informed, that statistically the majority of people who have a complaint, if you will, wish to file an informal complaint, and they'll now just have an electronic means of doing so. Anyone who previously wanted to file a formal complaint loses nothing by this. Anyone going forward who future wants to file a formal complaint loses nothing by this. There'll be no screening or elimination. So when you file the electronic complaint that we're calling informal, you will still have the ability. It will not be a hurdle because the good people at Professional Standards will interact with you and ensure that they assist you with the form if need be, provide the form. It won't be an additional burden upon you to file what we're using the word formal for purposes of accreditation and almost technically, if I might, but not to weight the level of the complaint. As far as volume, we don't know that yet. It's a tool that's being added. We don't know that there will be inundation because you can now go on your cell phone, because theoretically you could also still call now for the same type of interactions that are happening, and we haven't seen a spike or inundation with the access. So don't anticipate an influx and someone who is into mal behavior and wants to flood the system. There are protections. When you look at the form, you'll see a reCAPTCHA. That's a protection mechanism for somebody who wants to flood the form. So we really don't anticipate the concern that's possible, but we'll monitor it. It's set up as a pilot so that if we encounter difficulties as we go along as far as an inundation or something, that we can tweak and adjust and be flexible in what we are doing. But we are hoping that it will be more useful and net positive than negative going forward. I hope that's an accurate representation of things.
Thank you. Attorney Andrews. Councilwoman Scipio.
I really think this is wonderful, but we always think about what we have, not necessarily what those who don't have. And this is all about digital, so people have to have some type of device to use this system. And yet there are a lot of people who don't have smartphones, they don't have home computers. So I like to recommend that somehow we connect this service to our local recreation centers where we have computers, and perhaps people can go there to file their whatever complaint or commendation, and perhaps the staff could assist them in doing that. If that's not a doable thing, I think we should have old-fashioned paper forms so people can actually fill them out and mail it in just as another avenue. I don't want to eliminate anyone from having the ability to give a nice report, but everybody's not able to use these digital formats. So I would also advocate for some old-fashioned paper.
I think you're actually spot on. Most people do have access, as we know, to smartphones. It's just the way things are. But just like you said, this site can be accessed from a rec center. It can be accessed from a library. It's just about providing access and making sure people can connect. There might be people who are disabled. There might be people who don't have transportation. So they've got a myriad of ways to be able to get their complaints. And right now they can pick up the phone, even if that isn't an option, according to our attorney in our police department. So again, this does not limit anybody from using the mechanisms already in place. It just provides more access. So I don't want to overcomplicate it, but I do think we can monitor this as Bill Pro Temp would say. Let's monitor this and just see how it goes. If we need to make some adjustments, we can do it. But I think this is a way to move forward in moving the public safety needle. Is there anybody else who wishes? Oh, Councilmember McIntyre.
Just a quick comment. The citizen question is not on the complaint form. It's only on the accommodation form.
Okay, great. Because what we don't want to do is discourage somebody who may have a different nationality from mine.
Right.
And then you don't want to not let them report things. Because I understand in certain communities, they don't report for fear of other things. So we're encouraging everybody, if there's something to report, there's a crime, get it out there. The police department will work with you. And I love to pick up the phone and call 911. No police officer's going to be here. So this isn't a beat up on the police situation. It's just providing more access to our citizens to have a greater voice. So anyone else wishes to be heard on this item?
We do ask.
Councilman Larson.
We do ask for gender and age and some other personal sort of questions here on that complete complaint form. We might as well ask for residency as well if we're going to do that. I mean, or not, or take it off the other way. I mean, I don't understand. If we're trying to understand who these people are that are complaining or commending.
I believe the use of the word citizen on the commendation form was meant to convey resident, and citizen was an innocent term, not meant to refer to citizenship.
That will come up. So we can interchange those words.
We can.
Are you fine
And
with
the
that?
rest of the biographical information is merely for data collection, for categorizing.
We ask for addresses and stuff. I mean, On commendation, we're not asking for an address all over. I mean, so this residency question, if you're not asking for an address, would be relevant. If you're asking for an address on the complaint, then you already know whether they're a resident or not. So maybe that's, I mean, I'm trying to understand the differentiation between the two forms.
Any other questions, Mr. Larson?
That's it.
Okay. Anything else on this item? So this does not require council approval at this time. So we'll make the change administratively. We'll monitor it. We'll come back and make adjustments as necessary. So that concludes item G3, and it concludes our agenda, rather.
No, I need to say something.
Mayor Pro Tem Burke's recognized.
Yes. October the 2nd was a very wonderful day in this city. The Supreme Court of North Carolina selected Winston-Salem, Forsyth County as a place to help celebrate their bicentennial. It was held in Forsyth County, Hall of Justice. The person who was assigned to make sure it was put together in a proper way was Senior Resident Judge L. Todd Burke. As we looked around our city and we saw how wonderful it looked around the courthouse, in and out, and then coming out of the court, we saw our Winston-Salem police carrying out their duties and responsibilities. Under the direction of Assistant Chief Weaver, of course, you know the chief had to approve everything, but under the direction of the Assistant Chief, the police who had been assigned to carry out these duties made all of us feel good. They didn't have on those police suits, but you're talking about looking good. And they carried out their duties in such a professional way. It just made us feel so happy. And the Chief Justice Beasley, along with the other 6 chiefs, felt that our city had done a magnificent job. They wrote back and they talked about Winston-Salem, Forsyth County. That was a big day. That was successful. And then these same people were getting busy for the fair. And we have not heard anything that happened that was not positive. And so to the Winston-Salem Police Department, we as citizens, and especially us who are elderly, we appreciate being able to come and go in the streets of Winston-Salem that we love so very much. And we thank you.
Before we move to adjourn, thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. I would also like to offer my commendations to the police department for a 10-day fair. But I understand without incident. As I was out with my family, I saw many of the brave men and women of our police department out. I even saw Assistant Chief Weaver, out. I think you were out there all 10 days, right, Chief? Now, that's the kind of level of service. Now, I'm not saying nobody else is out there. I'm just telling you who I saw. That's the level of service that, this gentleman certainly gives us, and these women and men give us. And we appreciate the opportunity to work with you, and thank you for protecting our citizens. So, job well done.
Thank you.
Please do, Chief. And this is Assistant Chief Weaver.
Councilmember Taylor, Mayor Pro Tem, other members of the Public Safety Committee, we thank you. We really do appreciate that. We've had not only a good partnership with the Sheriff's Department, and Kernersville Police Department also assisted us with the Chief Justices as they were in town, but we've had a variety of different types of special events this year. The Winston-Salem Cycling Classic, the National Black Theater Festival. We just finished with the Dixie Classic Fair. This upcoming weekend will be the Pride Festival and Parade. We also have Winston-Salem State Homecoming, and then at the end of the season, we'll have the Holiday Parade. All of those events we're looking at from a variety of different aspects so that we ensure that we have safe events. We have to look at things, and I'll just go ahead and say it, from the attack aspect as well as from an accident occurring that could hurt various people. So with those aspects in mind, we do everything that we can and try to ensure that we have contingency planning taken care of so that if anything happens, as Mayor Pro Tem Burke has asked us, we are ready. Thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Assistant Chief Weaver. And, you know, Chief, I'm going to say this and I'm gone. Chief Thompson, you know, when things aren't going well, it's all your fault. You know, when things are going well, it's all your fault. So thank you for your leadership, and thank you to everyone for helping to make this happen. If there's no further business that should be considered for the good of the order, we consider this meeting to be adjourned. Thank you.